Hello, welcome. My name is Kurt, and I'm going to read a chapter from my book, Going Alone. This video is brought to you by my daughter Emily and her boyfriend Tatsuya, who purchased for me, for my birthday, a Boya wireless mic that I'm currently using. And hello, my name is Kurt, and I'm going to read to you from a chapter from my book, Going Alone. This video is brought to you by my daughter Emily and her boyfriend Tatsuya, who bought me a really nice wireless mic, a Boya mic system, for my birthday on the 19th. And this is a great opportunity to use it, hopefully capturing a bit of the ambience of the river behind my house while I read. And Rudy, maybe just barely see him, he's up there at the top, he's tied up there, so he can't get away, but he's with me as well. So let's begin. I already read the introduction chapter a few weeks back, and today I'm going to read, and there's somebody watching me, as is always the case in Japan. You can't, everywhere you go, there's always somebody watching. And I'm going to read now the chapter titled The Cast, which I added this chapter later in the, after the book was written, and then a friend of mine that read the book, she had some comments that that I needed like an appendix, something to describe who was in the book, the characters, the settings, etc. And she recommended I put that in the back, and I thought that was a great idea. Thank you, Cindy, for that recommendation. I decided that was such a great idea that it deserved its own chapter. So I folded in the chapter just after the introduction titled The Cast. So in this chapter, I'll go through all the major ideas, figures, fictional and a few factual, that are folded into this book. So let's begin. And every chapter in the book begins with a title, and then there's an illustration. And I'll show you, Rudy, it's okay. I'll show you the illustration here by my daughter Emily. That's the cast. That's the riding bridge, the tire at Siberia Ghost Town at the entrance there. Rudy, it's okay. Well, hold on. Once he gets started on the chewing on the thing, Rudy. What? No, this should be able to keep. This is a good test of the audio. Now, whoa! Once he gets started chewing on that, he won't stop. He saw a person walk past. Rudy, it's cool. There you go. Just stay right there. Okay. So I'll get through this reading as far as we can while still keeping Rudy under control. Apparently you can go like 100 meters away with this mic and it still keeps its range. Let's see how far we can go. You doing better now? There you go. Okay. Let's get started. That guy must have been wondering, who the heck is that foreigner in the river talking to? Okay, here we go. The cast. Characters, places, and concepts within my book. And there's a quote. What an immeasurable, limitless desert this is. What could you deduce here of God's purposes? What in this dead emptiness is He permitting? In this blank terrain, inimical to life, all-consuming, all consumed, totally burned up and out, totally unsupportive of humanity's self-belief, this fragment or segment of a world self that is not, this corpse which, never since the earth was born, has given its creator a single word in return. That's from Henrik Ibsen. When I read that, let me get my glasses out. When I read that, I was like, well, that's perfect for the book because it speaks to the emptiness that when confronted causes us to wonder at the existence of God, and then we reach our conclusions accordingly. And I added it in here because this cast basically is the set of characters in my own examination of whether deity does exist, and if it does not, then what? Here we go. Let us begin with an introduction to the places and characters which play a role in my story of going alone. Now, the chapter before this was the introduction chapter, where I kind of give a biography of who I am and the journey that led me to age 53 at the time. I'm 61 now. 53 at the time when I first started writing this. To check on him. What are you eating up there? Rudy? Rudy? Rudy! Okay. Let us begin with an introduction to the places and characters which play a role in my story of going alone. Some of these will figure notably in the book, while others are only mentioned briefly or not at all, or may only appear elsewhere, such as in my other writings or within the many videos I have made and shared about the deep wilderness settings which I have explored in Japan and America. Like this. Not deep wilderness, but this is representative of that. Each of these places and characters are important to me for their use as landmarks, symbols, or analogy to the ideas I wish to convey. And as we proceed through this book, I would like you to imagine 4 separate regions where these places and characters exist as elements of the story I want to tell. Quick check. What are you eating? The first region is this civilization we enjoy and share, even if you and I are separated now by vast space and time, and which is the common bond between my writing these words and your reading of them. I do not think I need to speak much of this civil place and circumstance between us, given the fact that it is our common human heritage, even if I am from California and you are from Istanbul. This shared resource of human connection is something we both know, enjoy, and may sometimes struggle to find and maintain a place within. It is our civilization and our community and our people and our home. This is the place from which we will start. It is the setting out point for this adventure of going alone. Do not lose sight of it. Never forget what it is or how important this grounding will always be to the well-lived life, to the social life, to the good life. Good. You're doing good. So that's the first step is this social circumstance, right? That's where we're the setting off point of the four regions that we'll pass through in the adventure of going alone. The next 3 regions of potential exploration are settings increasingly removed from civilization, places elsewhere and far away, distant and remote to our common understanding and the comfort of what we know is true. You and I are both aliens of a sort in these less explored places, especially when we go alone, and especially when we go alone where there are no roads, trails, paths, or opportunity of help, or where the connections, security, and comfort we've left behind are now truly out of reach. At the near edge of this vast and mostly universal wild, there is a crossing over point and borderland, which I call the edge of deep water. And by the way, I came up with the edge of deep water here in Japan before I went back to America. It is a high point between civilization and the deeper wilds, a place where we can at once see, hear, and otherwise perceive both the last vestige of our home and community in the near distance behind us, as well as the empty lands of wildness dead ahead and down below. The word wildness is in italics there. That is my own harken back to Thoreau, who once said that in wildness is the preservation of the world. This edge of deep water is someplace we can indeed visit. And if we are lucky, and if we go alone, then just maybe we will catch a glimpse there of the terrible thing I call the great indifference, which is defined further. What was that? Oh, that's Rudy. Rudy, it's okay. It's just the guy in a truck. It's okay. It's just a guy in a truck. You're totally cool up there. See, let's just sit down and be cool. Which is, okay, thing I call the great indifference, which is defined further in this book. I recommend going no further than this edge if you are timid or scared or not willing to risk or to lose or to die seemingly too soon. I can't emphasize that point enough. This is my very real and sincere warning to you. I am not trying to sound dramatic or to simply entertain you with dangerous sounding cautions. Death and something possibly much worse can really find you when you perceive the great indifference. Do not go alone to the edge of deep water if you do not really want to know. And if you do go, then go alone and do not try to follow me. You will not find what is there if you do. Good boy. Next, and beyond the edge of deep water, comes the deep water wilderness itself. This is the third level. This is where most of the remaining characters and places in this book are found. They are landmarks, as I said, and though they are indeed real, it does not really matter if you find them. In fact, you are better off discovering such things in a desert of your own seeking. Go somewhere else. Find something else. Take your own scary risks. Do not seek the places and things which I have found and have related here. Do not look for the great indifference just where I found it, as it will be hard to see with the echo of my past passage blinding your view and confounding your footsteps. And if you do go where I once went, and then successfully locate any of my landmarks, such as the Watcher, or the Miner, or Campo Number 1, or the Home of Faith, or even Mount Wildness itself, then I'll bet you'll stand there and say to yourself, why the hell did I come here? And what was Kurt talking about? This is nothing. And so it'll be nothing to you. This is because even if you went to my places all by yourself, you did not truly go alone. That was 3 of the 4 places. Now number 4. The last place on my indistinct map of regions is the great indifference itself, which is both beyond and within the deep water wilderness. It is everywhere, in fact, only we can see it better the further we get out there in the desert. It's in the mountains too, and in the sea, and where you work and where you live, though you can't very well perceive such empty in these places due to the clutter of life and the artifacts of living. To perceive the great indifference clearly, you will need a desert, and you will need to go far, far beyond your own edge of deep water. Give one last look back before you proceed, going down and into your own deep water, and then beyond. Do you see it out there? If so, then now what? Read on to learn how I answered this peculiar question in my own life, which is the substance and subject of my book and story. So that then sets the stage for the 4 layers that are traveled through in our approach to the great indifference. Oh, and there's the last sentence there. But first, let's meet the cast of Going Alone. So those are the 4 levels that we must pass through, and you can pass through them just about anywhere. You could even do it at work or at home in your sofa. But I've never been able to pull that off, but it should be possible to do it there with enough fortitude. Okay, the first is called, and then what follows from there is like a series of segments. You can take a look here. See them laid in? Siberia Ghost Town, and then a description, and then the next thing, and then a description, one after the other. That's what the remainder of the whole chapter is all about. You are such a good boy up there, Rudy. Papa's so proud of you. Here we go. You know what's really neat is that being here behind my house in the river below my house, I feel totally at ease. I can speak with as much volume as I want. This little chasm in the river kind of masks it all behind. I hope the audio is coming through good. Here we go. Siberia Ghost Town. And a quote. Here's my best Shakespeare. Alas, how is it with you that you do bend your eye on vacancy, and with the incorporeal air do hold discourse? That's from Hamlet. Siberia is a small, deserted community halfway up the Mojave Grade between Amboy and Ludlow in the Southern California desert. There's nothing at Siberia now but ruins and ghosts, and even these have only enough remembrance to barely exist as rubble, dust, and fiction. Come here when you are ready to go further, but do not expect to find what you are looking for. It is not here. True, there were once people, lives, and dreams at this place, lives and dreams like yours and mine, Though there is nothing more now to see at Siberia, though there's perhaps much yet to discover and learn, but only if you go alone, and only if you find your own Siberia. Siberia is a real place. It's a ghost town off Route 66, about 4 miles west of the town of Amboy on the right side of the road. There's the ruins of the store that was once there, and that's about it. There's some graves out in the desert. You can find them if you spend a couple of years looking around, like I did. They're out there. But other than ghosts and stones and memory and the railroad that sends trains whistling by once in a while, that's about it. The next entry is BNSF Railroad. Siberia Ghost Town owes its existence and history to the Burlington Northern and Santa Fe Railroad, the tracks of which run just north of the crumbled stone ruins of the ghost town's former train station. While nearby Route 66 has all but died, the BNSF remains a thriving concern, with mile-long freight trains passing east and west several times every hour, day and night, breaking the desert silence with thunderous locomotives heading up a long string of heavy freight cars moving slowly through the desert. The locomotives proceed always on their way through every desert town and siding, even the ghost towns, by issuing 4 blasts of the lead engine's deep resonant train horn. 2 long blasts, followed by a short blast, and then a last long bellow as the train approaches and then passes through the lonely Siberia Railway crossing. These trains are an irregular timepiece and reminder of what we have left behind in coming here. They pass us by very closely, yet remain impossibly far, especially at night, especially when there is no moon, and the wind blows and we wake up and we ask ourselves why we've come at all to such a place and why we came alone. So that's the setting off point, Siberia Ghost Town and the railroad there. The next entry is Route 66, which of course you may know is a famous road. They call it the Mother Road, that runs from all the way across America, I think from Chicago, isn't it? All the way down to Santa Monica, dumps into the sea in Los Angeles area. Route 66. Route 66, aka the Mother Road, is now a lonesome stretch of highway running alongside the BNSF Railroad through much of the East Mojave Desert. This old highway is my access to Siberia Ghost Town, with the infrequent traffic along this road being but an echo of the millions of people who arrived in California via this famous and historic transcontinental thoroughfare. There is a marker facing east at the north side of Route 66, where a small dirt road leads off along the short drive up to Siberia. The marker is a large tire with the words West Siberia written on it in white spray paint. I sometimes wonder how many westbound travelers on Route 66 even notice the marker. Sometimes I will stand a short way off in the desert near the tire to watch folks' faces as they drive past the ghost town entrance. The only people who ever seem to notice the sign, or me, standing alone in the empty desert, are the employees of the BNSF Railroad, passing by in their large white utility trucks. They notice me as I am out of place in a landscape they know. The others never see me. They do not know this place, as they are perhaps too focused on their Route 66 journey, which is simply yet another unworthy distraction. Siberia Bridge, and another quote. Active in indolence, abroad we roam, in quest of happiness which dwells at home. With vain pursuits fatigued at length you'll find, no place excludes it from an equal mind. That's from James Elphinstone. And I get all these quotes from my reading. Siberia Bridge is, well, you'll know what it is when I read it. This is the place where my muse lives. Remember, Siberia is the ghost town name. This is the place where my muse lives, or where she followed me to before I at last caught up. We have conspired a lot down here, the two of us, as if we are truly just one. Such an idea. The bridge was our shelter and a catalyst to thought, away from the reality, masking the quite stark and terrible truth it took me 50 years to find. I have some personal things stashed down there in the rafters under the bridge. a chair, a camera, tripod, and some chalk. You're welcome to these things if you find them, as they are a bother and a clutter to the simplicity that I first found here under this old road. The underside of the bridge can be a scary place to go when you are alone, especially at night. I would not want to go there if I were not already me. If you do go, well, you know, go alone. And those items are no longer down there. So the bridge, I called it the writing bridge, was where I wrote the bulk of this book, sitting there on a chair, a folding chair that I kept stashed under the rafters with a few other items. All of those items are gone. Before I moved back to Japan, I made a special trip there with my nephew Parker, and we liberated all the bridge of all my possessions so that we didn't leave it behind as clutter. But you can probably still find my writing, because I used to take notes in chalk under the rafters, the wooden rafters, and I lay odds that my writing is still up there here as late as the 22nd of May 2025. It'll probably be there for another 5 or 10 years or more. Okay, the next one is called the Path of Wildness, and another quote. And by the way, the Path of Wildness is a concept. It's the concept that was the foundation of the whole book. The Path of Wildness is an idea that I came up when I was living in Japan before I went back to America, when people would write to me, young men typically, a few young women in their late teens or mid-20s, etc., asking how I pulled off the feat of living an adventurous life, all the while being a family man and a career man. And I wrote the Path of Wildness as a short essay to send them to read. That became the foundation of the book. Since then, the Path of Wildness has become a concept that is grounded in a poem that I wrote that goes like this. The Path of Wildness is easy to find. It's the course of a stream, leaves blown in the wind, a beast's track through the brush, and the direction of our first inclination. It's okay, little one. It's just a truck going by on the bridge. Are you chewing on your lead again? Hold on, let me go. Settle his mind. Little Rudy, little Rudy. Rudy. Every time someone goes by, he gets all worked up. Rudy, come here to Papa. It's okay. Thank you for being such a good protector of the property and of Papa. I appreciate that. You're my good boy. Okay, you stay here. Let's not get tangled up. And if you're getting all tangled up, there we go. Stay here. I'll just read a little more. Maybe we'll kind of truncate this. You stay up there, but don't get too close to the edge. Yeah, Papa's almost done. We'll go back inside. Maybe I'll just read a little more. Maybe next time I'll come out. I'll leave him inside. I like to keep him with me, though. Good boy. Okay, let's read the Path of Wildness. The Path of Wildness, and a quote. The bounds of knowledge marks and points the way to pathless wastes where wilder sages stray. James Courtenay. The Path of Wildness is both a place in fiction and something real. I first developed this concept while living in Japan and while exploring a wilderness landscape too civil and tame to reveal the deeper truth I would later come to know in the wilder places of the American desert. I realize now I couldn't have never apprehended the great indifference if I'd stayed in Japan. I needed to go to America to do that. The Path of Wildness is symbolic of our courage in moving forward along the riskier courses of life, where such direction seems the way our intuition suggests we should go. It takes great courage to step upon the path, in quotation marks, which is the way untraveled, uncertain, and unforgiving. Yet the rewards are sometimes, though not always, worth the risk, especially to those who no longer seek the gain. That might be key. But of course, we can go this way only when we muster the courage to move forward alone, as there is no path of wildness to be found while in the company of others. Thus the reason for going alone. Do not go if you are very scared. Please consider this my warning, as what you might surely lose along the way may not be worth the journey. That is your loss. That's a bit of a pretzel of a sentence and idea there, but it's exactly what I wanted to say. Throughout this book, I refer sometimes to paths, trails, ways, and sometimes roads. I use these words carefully and deliberately. I use them to describe passage through life which is safe or sane or familiar or perhaps alien and strange and remote. Trails, ways, and roads are places where we follow others and where we are not likely to encounter anything which our species has not already met. Such places are seemingly tame and civilized and somehow sanctioned by virtue of the past passage of others, even if that passage was long ago and forgotten. Even the slightest hint of another of our kind will spoil the way, but only if you do not want to find what may otherwise be there. When we step off any road, trail, or way and begin moving, preferably walking, alone, then we disembark from the comfort and reassurance of precedent. We leave behind our guides. We forget to follow. We begin to move on the path of wildness. After returning to America in 2014, I discovered that the Path of Wildness in fact exists as a short stone-lined walkway in the empty desert surrounding the deserted ghost town of Siberia. You can go there and walk the path now, leading from nowhere to nowhere. Only do not expect the journey to end where you want, or where the path peters out, or anywhere in particular at all. And for best results, only go alone. All right, the next one is called The Sandman's Bed, and a quote. "But desert space and atoms invisible." Lucretius. Perfect quote for this one. The Sandman's Bed. This is a place I discovered during the anxiety hike, and which is described in the chapter of the same name in this book. The Sandman's Bed is an area of rough badlands made of decomposing granite, furrowed by a maze of flash flood channels carved into the granite through eons of weathering and erosion. The area is immense and often without wind, with very still and silent air, and an almost unsettling quietude. The sand within the twisting, bone-dry stream beds here is soft and easy to walk on, and while the loose and weathered granite surrounding these dry watercourses is solid, it is nevertheless slippery like marbles and slick like glass, and thus potentially quite dangerous to cross. This is a place where you are likely to trip and fall, or twist an ankle, or pull a tendon and become unable to walk. This is also a good place to come to meet and get to know the side of yourself which maybe didn't expect a universe without intrinsic meaning, or that didn't know that you could be so lonesome with the idea of a universe chock full of empty. Do you think you can weather the silence here? Can you maintain your equanimity in the face of such unsettling peace and quiet? Dare you take off your shoes when you are so far alone into the Sandman's maze, to then lie upon the sand and close your eyes and see just how long you can keep your eyes shut? Come here other than alone, and you might as well have never come at all. He's being a good boy. Let's do another. Mount Wildness. First came up with that idea, Mount Wildness, here in the mountain range, back there behind where I'm pointing. Doesn't exist, but nevertheless, that didn't stop me from making it up. A quote. A fool's eyes wander to the ends of the earth. Proverbs 17:24. Mount Wildness is my personal destination, and a place where I have never been and will never ever arrive. At least you'll never hear that from me. I will never tell you if I get there. That's me talking. It's my little aside that you get to hear what I meant by that. I made up Mount Wildness while living in Japan, imagining this mountain as the home of the true things I feared most, and a destination I could strive for in my better moments. I imagined Mount Wildness as having two sides, the near and the far side, with the near side being the place I could actually approach in relative safety, while the far side is an impossible distance I might indeed someday reach, but from which then I might never fully return. Mount Wildness became a real place to me after I came home to America and came home to America and identified a very remote mountain in the eastern Mojave Desert as this likely peak. I later concluded I was wrong and have since identified a new and much more distant peak further and more terrible as the real Mount Wildness. It is my goal to hike to this mountain before my life is done, but I'll never tell anyone what I find there. Going to Mount Wildness may be the last thing I ever do. Well, that's changed. I've lost my ambition to go there because I've found what's out there already. The only reason I would go there is relative to the very last sentence I just read, which I'll leave as a bit of an enigma. And an important and interesting enigma for sure, though. The next one. The Woodsman's Cabin and Campo Number 1. 2 places covered in one. And a quote. When I'm there, I hate it. When I'm here, I miss it. It's a paradox. That's by David Hempelman Adams. The Woodsman's Cabin is another place which I dreamed up in Japan. The idea probably began as a result of the many abandoned farms, and in particular, the forgotten and dilapidated old farm sheds, chock full of old farming tools, which I found while exploring in the deep mountains of central Japan. There was something about these deserted places which suggested past care and concern by humans, and the subsequent loss of any consideration or remembrance even. There is an emptiness about such places which in some ways is deeper and more telling than the mere nothing we can sometimes, and sometimes only, sense while alone in very wild places. This is the atmosphere and character of the Woodsman's Cabin, a token of the wonderful warmth and love of what was, discovered in contrast to and within the cold embrace of the emptiness which will forever be. Campo Number 1 is a very real place, and the remnant of a former desert mining site located at the edge of the Deepwater Wilderness. It and the Woodsman's Cabin are central to the story of going alone, as these real places are the last real frontiers of connection in my own adventure before entering a place I call the Valley of the Soulless Beasts, which is too distant a place to visit in this book. I sometimes use this lost camp to overnight at when exploring the deeper desert. It is a good place to rest and sleep and remember what we are now and what we soon must not become. By the way, the Valley of the Soulless Beasts, you can approach it in a video that I made that includes that title, Valley of Soulless Beasts. One of the last hikes I did in the desert before I came back to America, or before I stopped going to the desert, which was a couple of years before I came back to America. Next, the Deepwater Wilderness. This is a deeper dive into the concept. First explored one of the 4 regions I explored at the head of this chapter. And a quote by my favorite author, Dr. Johnson. I've got to put on Dr. Johnson's booming voice. But what must be the solicitude of him who should be wandering among the cracks and hollows, benighted, ignorant, and alone? Dr. Johnson. Now, he wrote that when he was doing his tour of the Western Isles and the Highlands, and sitting by a streambed similar to this, writing about a man who might be wandering the moors alone. The Deepwater Wilderness. This is a real place, though the name is one I came up with myself. Honestly, I do not know what this place might be properly called, as it seems at once too unremarkable and uninteresting a landscape to be worthy of a name all its own. But I've gave it a name nonetheless. You can get to the Deepwater Wilderness by first going to Siberia Ghost Town. Just plug the Ghost Town's name into your device's map application. After you arrive, start walking towards those low hills to the north. When you get there, then get ready, for what is beyond those hills is harder than it looks. That beyond, in quotation marks, is the Deepwater Wilderness. Are you ready for a swim beyond your depths? Just how long can you tread and keep your head above water? This is the landscape where the desert killers live. The killer is there when you expect it should be, but also perhaps when you might not. The only real sanctuary here is the home of faith, which I have defined and described a little further in this book. But even faith cannot keep you alive or intact if you are too trusting, bold, or foolish. The Deepwater Wilderness is someplace you should never bring any such nonsense. You have been warned. So remember, after civilization comes the the edge of deep water, becomes the deep water wilderness, and then there's the edge of deep water, which is the intermediate ground between civilization and the deep water, the edge. That's the next section, the edge of deep water. And a quote: "Therefore, the door of death is never closed to sky and sun and earth and sea's deep waters. No, it stands open, and with vast gaping mouth it waits for them." Lucretius. This is where you can fairly safely go from Siberia, if you simply want to glimpse the empty without much risk of the empty glimpsing you. Never go here during summer, though, as you really will not make it back. Seriously, you won't make it back. You'll die. However, during almost any other time of the year, just go to Siberia Ghost Town. Just go to Siberia Ghost Town, and then walk north for a mile or so until you reach those low hills. Carefully climb the hills, and when you reach the top, then look north out over the edge. If you go to the highest point in these low hills, then you will stand in my own footsteps, for whatever that might be worth. Not much. I wonder if you will also feel my fear while you stand there. Look north and down. So you got to kind of look north and down when you're there. Look like this. Look north and down now from where you are. That place down below is where the last part of the anxiety hike took place. That's another chapter in this book. You are standing now at the very final spot in the anxiety hike chapter of this book, at a place where I point out that you can see Siberia once more. You can finally see safety again. You are out. You have made it. So it's the edge where you can see beyond into the deep water wilderness. And it's also the place that there's one chapter here called the anxiety hike, which is an adventure to give you a sample of what it's like. And it's the very end, coming back out. So it's the departure point, exiting out of the deep water wilderness. There is a watcher, in quotation marks, that's also another entry in this chapter. There's a watcher down there, described below, in that twisting canyon just below you, watching even now, even 100 years after I write these words. Down and a little to the east. Can you find it? I have left something there for you in case you try. I really did. I left something down there for you to find. But be careful. If you try to find it, and you do it at the wrong time of the year, you will die in the process. I'm very serious about that. Probably it's better not to try to find it, but it's there. Though the watcher is watching always, it will never see you, as there is too much empty blocking the view. If you are lucky, then this same empty will soon become apparent to your own view. This is the great indifference, which begins here. Those black mountains dead ahead, yet very far in the distance, that is a place to go. But remember always, the desert killer which can easily find you from this point on. There is a sanctuary here called the Home of Faith. Can you find it? I never did. And I died without knowing, just like my father before me. A very worthy death, if not without some risk. Okay, there are some people. I wonder if Rudy's going to part. The Muse, the next chapter. And a quote. I sat down to make notes on the green. I got to be like Dr. Rudy, be careful. It's cool, Rudy. Oh, he's doing it again. Rudy suppression services. It's cool, Rudy. It's just people and a dog. Hoop. Hoop. Rudy, come here. Here. Rudy boy, Rudy boy. There we go. Papa's right here. I'm just going to read a little more and then we'll be done, okay? Yeah, you're such a good boy. Thank you for trying to be a protector. I'll finish up in just a second. There you go. This will be the last one, okay? Okay. Almost done. Almost done. Okay. Look, you got a spider on you. Where'd the spider go? Okay. Well, maybe I'll stop there. That's probably been enough. I think Rudy's had enough. Thanks for joining me. I hope that the audio was good and clear. I'll put a dog here on this page and continue from this page going forward. And we'll just work our way. I figured it out. We'll just work our way through the book. It used to be that I would try to read a whole chapter every time, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I will. There you go. I'll stop right there. Thanks for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Let me get the camera. Let's go. Why don't you go? Let's go say hi to Rudy together, shall we? Rudy boy. I wonder if I can turn it around. I can't. Rudy, what a good boy. Rudy boy, Rudy boy. Thanks for joining us. Be safe, but not too safe. Take care. Good boy.